Hi guys, and welcome to my review, which I'm calling a merry bunch of misfits. Why a merry bunch of misfits? Well, because these IEMs have all got their differences, but ultimately they've also got some commonality, and they kind of come together. I thought it would be just interesting to instead of reviewing them separately, to just join them together and show them to you in one go, and then kind of compare them with each other, not so much as to find an overall winner, but kind of to situate them and position them. What do I have then? First of all, I've got the HAKUGEI Sea-elf. You can choose it with different setups in terms of the cable and how many plugs that modular cable then brings. I opted for the basic setup, which is got the three options for the Hakugai cable that you can get, which obviously made sense to be a Hakugai cable. The IEMs themselves are this resin shell affair, nicely built. It's got a nice looking faceplate. I mean, it's a solid build. It's a very light IEM. Inside, what we have is a LCP dual magnet, dual diaphragm driver. You get this case as well, with obviously the plugs and some tips which come as well inside of the other main box. And yeah, that's it. That's basically what we get here from the Hakugai. Next to it, I've got the XSL X1. Nice tip selection. It's got plenty tips. I used the tips momentarily, but I actually ended up using my KB Ear 07 tips because it's just the one that I usually like. You can opt as well for the X1 to come with a 4.4 or 3.5. I opted for, and a 2.5 actually as well. I opted for the 4.4. Very solidly built IEM. I mean, it's really very solidly built. It looks the part. Nice finish, solid, decent weight to it. And it's been getting, this particular model has been getting some attention because it was opened up by a fellow reviewer, and the driver that it brings inside seems to be the same driver as you get in the very famous MIM Dark Magician, obviously with a different tuning implemented here, but the basis is there. Then we have the UConn Reecho SG03, the usual UConn kind of case and presentation. Inside, it brings the IEMs came over there. Underneath came the carrying case. Again, a very nice selection of tips. Very nice. There's really nothing in terms of the tips that can be faulted. Let me just put this away so it doesn't bug us here. The case is a case that we've seen already in multiple other IEMs, which is this one over here. Okay, and that UConn does use quite often. The IEMs themselves. The cable, for example, is a cable which is very reminiscent of the cable that you get on the Moondrop Blessing 3, and obviously we're talking different price points, but this is just to show what I was telling you earlier, that the Blessing could bring a nicer cable. As for the IEMs themselves, all full metal build, nicely solidly built. They've got a peculiarity, which is the fact that the nozzle is replaceable. Okay, you can change the nozzle for a different for a different nozzle that they bring, which is a black one. Although in terms of sound, I honestly didn't see any difference, so I kind of just left it with the stock nozzle. Next to that, I have the Tipsy TT ROMSO IEM. Again, a simple box. Nothing too fancy here. It brings some paperwork. The IEM came over there. It brings I guess an acceptable cable, a little bit on the thin side, but it's not really the thinness that annoys me. It tangles up very easily. Brings some tips and stuff underneath that. It's fine. I mean, the only real thing that I think it's a pity is the fact that it doesn't actually bring a case. It brings a little pouch, which, I mean, for $90 it would have been nice. As for the IEM itself, it uses a 12mm driver, but relatively small for such a big driver. It's inside there. Nice shell. This kind of turquoise blue kind of vibe is very nice. I'm not using the stock cable, as you can see. I'm actually using a IVPIQ cable. Really nice cable, mind you. And then I've got two other IEMs here. I've got the Venture Electronics the SEA on this side, and I've got the Reecho SG01 on this side. Okay, and they are here for reasons which I'll get into now next. So how can I then explain or position or talk about these IEMs in a more concrete manner? Okay, as I mentioned in the beginning, they all got their own style or their own particular way of doing their sound playback. One in particular here stands out for me, at least. Well, two actually stand out in particular for me, because they are the ones that kind of have the sound which is more along the lines of the sound of the SEA. And this is ultimately my top reference in this group here. The TTROMSO has a sound very, very, very similar to the SEA. Very similar. It's actually quite interesting. I was not expecting it, but the moment I put it on and I listened to it, I said, "Oh, I've heard something similar to this," and it wasn't long before I actually found and discovered that similarity was the SEA. And what am I saying by that? I'm saying that, well, they all are colored, okay, various degrees of colored, various degrees of V-shaped, but it's got great bass, great bass, which would be expected from using a 12mm driver. And it's got a very progressive pinna gain, which doesn't emphasize that area there of 2-3K too much. Then it goes up. It does a curve which is very similar to the SEA. Goes up, so basically you don't have any. It does away with any possible hints of shoutiness or aggressiveness, and songs like, for example, one of the songs that I used to see that, or that will showcase that, for example, is 1 second, Up and Up from Jeff Ryan. You put it, and the sax, the power of that sax, it over there, it's fine. You can listen to it loud, and it doesn't try to kill you or assassinate you, very much like the SEA does. Yes, obviously there's flaws, but ultimately the sound is a sound which is very similar to that. And just by listening to that song alone, I was straight away sold on the TTROMSO. The other one that I mentioned as well that has a very similar sound to the SEA in many aspects is the X1. Again, fantastic bass, great bass, but then it's got an area of the mids and the highs which is more along the lines of kind of like a Harman curve, and ultimately it's a little bit more darker sounding than either the TTROMSO or the SEA for that matter, but the bass is so engaging, and the mids are so well done that it kind of makes up for the fact that you don't have as much detail up top as you do have with those two. From Dusk to Dawn from George Duke, I mean, that those bass hits at the beginning of the song are just unreal. The X1 is tremendous, a true testament to the driver being used, being of high quality. Okay, so that is a real high quality driver being used there, as is, in my opinion, the driver being used in the TTROMSO. We then have the Reecho SG03s, and the SG03s, the moment I listened to it, I was automatically reminded of the SG01. And in essence, it is an SG01, but an SG01 where the area past pin again, so the 2-point-something K peak and then the 4-point-something K peak have been more emphasized. So it will reach its limits quicker, while the SG01 was, and when I reviewed it some time ago, and was and is still for me a reference, is an IEM that kind of reminds you of a Blonde 03 original, the Blonde 03, it's that kind of sound with full bass and so on and so forth, but a little bit more mids, a nicer and more well done or well executed treble. So it's kind of, you could say, a polished up Blonde. That there takes it a step further, maintains kind of the same bass, but the mids have now become a little bit on the aggressive side. I will be playing around with it, trying to see if I can maybe, with the second pair of replaceable nozzles, do something to kind of make it a little bit more audible, let's put it that way. I mean, I'm sure there will be people that will like its high energy presentation. I just feel that it's just too much. If this was let's say, on the limit, that has gone above the limit. So I mean, again, going back to the songs that I was just mentioning just now, the Up and Up from Jeff Ryan. I mean, it gets intense there. It really does get intense. And while over here you can listen to it, and if you control the volume a little bit, you won't really bug you too much. Over there it will bug you. Okay. And then finally we have the SEAELF, and the SEAELF is unquestionably the darkest one, but it's also the one that has a peak there at, post pin again, that doesn't help out. It shouts a little bit. And I think the thing that was that they missed the mark here on the SEAELF was the driver is a good driver in my opinion. I just feel that they kind of maybe jumped the gun in terms of the final tuning. They could have touched up a little bit more on the tuning. LCP drivers, from my experience, have a tendency of being already by nature a little bit darker. And there's nothing wrong with that darkness, mind you. There are people that like a more darker presentation. There are people that are not treble heads. But the fact that it's got that peak there, when I show you the graphs in a couple of minutes, you'll understand, kind of makes it makes it a double whammy, in that you have a dark sounding IEM, but it's a dark sounding IEM that when you push the volume, it can get aggressive, in certain parts of the musical reproduction, and it's a pity. It's a pity because there's potential here, and it's just the fact that the tuning wasn't fine tuned a little bit more that I think is its main failing point. Okay, technically, yes, you could say that at relatively normal volume levels, the one here that will perhaps be the most detailed, and so and perhaps present even the best soundstage and the best imaging, is the SG03s. But that is something which is, as I mentioned, a little bit short-lived, because I'm talking here at volumes which are towards up to about 50%. Above that, when things start, when you start really pushing it, it's not that it loses its composure in doing all of those things. No, it's just that it becomes way too energetic. So, like Tin Pan Alley from Stevie Ray Vaughan, it's not a busy song, but it's a song that you like, or that you will ultimately want to start listening to it, a little bit louder, and that knock of the cymbals, and there's all of that atmosphere that the song has there. But when the volume gets a little bit higher, it just gets too intense. It's just too much. Mexican Margarita from Jacob Govrich, the same situation. At normal listening levels, the guitar is amazing, it's detailed, it's, the plucks, everything, but then you just have to get a little bit into the music and push the volume, that again, it's too much, and it's a pity, honestly, it is a true pity, because I think that these two IEMs definitely suffer from a rushed tuning. Okay, they just didn't polish up things. I mean, the SG03 by comparison was darker, but it was composed. Okay, this is way brighter and uncomposed. Little Fugue in G minor from Jacques Lassoyer. Great bass. The drum hits, everything, even the piano comes across fine. Once again, it's just when you start giving it volume that things just, no. It Feels So Good from Diane Reeves, again, same kind of situation. So, it's an IEM that, yes, does shine in its technicalities at lower volumes, loses it when you really crank it up, but then overall, the performance is a little bit disappointing. So it's kind of the polar opposite of the SEAELF. The SEAELF technicalities aren't really very good, because, I mean, being so dark, the detailed retrieval is a little bit on the weak side. Soundstage, imaging, all of those things are not really. So you could say that these are two polar opposites. And again, and I repeat myself, I know, it's just down to the final tuning, I think, wasn't on point. These two are therefore on a different league. soundstage, imaging are for the most part good on either one, with the with the TTROMSO, sorry, actually coming out ahead, especially in the soundstage. That sensation of air, the TTROMSO has got more air. This one is a little bit closer down. Imaging is about the same. Detailed retrieval, again, the TTROMSO comes out on top, but minor difference, really, not a really big difference between the two of them. Timbre and tonality, or obviously it's a colored timbre and tonality, but both of them have got very agreeable timbre and tonality. Maybe just a little bit overly thick sometimes over here, but fine. Male vocals sound full and full of husk over here, which for some females just might make them a little bit unnatural, but you already know that this is going to be a fuller sounding IEM. Over there both male and female vocals sound more correct. Bass, ultimate bass impact power, yes, the X1 does come out on top. That one there has got a slightly more laid back slam, but it's again very, very, very similar. There's not really big differences. I would say these two are very comparable and they trade blows very nicely. When compared to the CA, yes, the CA has got more upper frequency resolution, more details. It is the one that is the most technically capable out of these three. More difference if you compare it to the X1, less differences if you compare it to the TT-ROM. So timbre and tonality are well on these already. We know what it is. I mean, it's a old school kind of vibe of sound that's been very well done, and these two reproduce that kind of old school kind of sound as well, with two slightly different approaches, but again very, very well executed. In terms of prices, they all have more or less the same price. We're talking roughly about $75, $80 for this particular setup here with the modular cable and the 3 different plugs. This is about $65, $70, that's not too bad. This is around the same thing again, $65 to $70. You can get it either from GLOBAL01 Store or you can get it from Penon. Those are the 2 stores that I usually see it. The TTROMSO, you can get it from TTROMSO, you can get it from either Penon or from HiFi Go. I got this one from HiFi Go. And that's priced at around $90. So $90, $70, $65, $80, $85. So very, very kind of within reason of each other. The Sia, we already know, it's about $100, and the Reecho we can now get it for $40. So this one here will be the value king. And like, as I said at the beginning, I've basically got it. I brought it out not so much to compare it with the other 3, but to compare it with the SG03s. And compared to the SG03s, honestly, that makes more sense. It's equally as well built, equally as well accessorized, and it just sounds better than that, which is a great pity. Honestly, it is a great pity. You would think that would be an upgrade, and no. The SG01 or the SG over, which is basically the same thing, are better IEMs, and in my opinion a better option over the SG03s. Who knows, maybe the SG03s might get a retune and then become a viable or a solid option, but as it stands right now, this is a better option as compared to that. The Hakugei, I can't really recommend it as well because of the fact that the tuning is just closed down. It's not, I don't know, it's really a great pity because all the other boxes have been ticked. Good build, good cables, good accessories or acceptable accessories. It's just the sound that it's just not on point there. The 2 IEMs that I recommend without any hesitation are the X1 and the TTROMs. Without question, I do recommend them. Obviously, they are facing very tough competition. There's so many other more IEMs that are present, but as I said, these differentiate themselves from the vast majority of IEMs out there. The likes of the TK, ZK Oranos, the likes of even the new blonde Z300, the likes of the C3, the T3 Plus, the C2, the One Ears, all those, because they have a different tuning approach. I would say that the one IEM that maybe kind of has a more similar tuning to this out of all the other IEMs out there would probably be the Jade Audio, the JD0, the 07. It's probably the one that has the most similar tuning to, or what the X1 approximates itself the most to. They sound, this and the Jade Audio, they actually sound, they've got similar genetics, let's put it that way. So yeah, definitely the X1 is a recommendation. The TTROMSO is another recommendation. You know, you could argue, well, but if I have the CA, which would I go to? You know, the CA is ultimately the better IEM, I'm not going to deny. But if you can get this, you know, with a little extra discount, maybe this could make sense, you know. Or if perhaps you don't like the gold finish and you don't like the metal shell and you want something which you know, is well built, resin shell, fits nicely, that can make again sense. And yeah, guys, that's basically it. I'll show you now the graphs and we take it from there. All right, take care. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section for this review that I did with multiple IEMs. And straight away, the first graph I'm showing you is the graph of the Reecho SG03s. And as you can see, well, it's not so much here the bass that's the problem. Okay, we have a 10 dB gain into the bass. It's the gain that we have for the Pina, which is you know, it's a 15 dB Pina gain. It's got the speaker at about 2.5, and then another peak at about 4.5, and it drops off, which this is again is not the problem here. And then it's got some extension there. It's these two peaks here, okay, that mess things up and make it just overly excitable, okay. By comparison, for example, to the SG01, which I've just placed up there, as you can see, the bass is the same, but the SG01 just brings down things a little bit more. This here is just you know, the actual insertion of the coupler. It will basically be the same thing. I actually prefer, to be honest, the way that the 01 does the extension past 10K. I like it more this way here. And the reality is the fact that we just have it's creeping just a little bit above 10 dBs there and there as well. It kind of you know, the bass is able to camouflage a little bit that extra energy, so it comes across just a little bit nicer. While the SG03, let me actually just put it here in a different color so it stands out a little bit more. Put it here in red. Okay. While the SG03s, I mean, it's just too much. It's really, honestly, just too much. It's not so much that problem, but it's this area here. Okay, so that's those two out of the way. Next one is the Hakugai, the Sea-elf, number 5 here. The Sea-elf. Again, the issue here isn't really the bass. I mean, if I put the SG03, you can see that they have very similar bass. It's again this excessive Pina gain that it has, okay, and that excessive Pina gain coupled to a very quick drop off makes for a very dark sounding IEM, okay, and you have this excessive energy, especially this part here of just over 4K. It shouts, and it's a pity because this could have been tuned differently. I'm positive about it. I might even myself try to do something about retuning it slightly. Okay, so that's that. The next one is the Tipsy TT ROMs. And with the original tips, this is what it looks like. Okay, so yes, a solid bass, as you can see, we're talking 73 to 84, so it's 11 dBs, okay, Pina there. But then you can see that you know, this whole area here past the Pina gain is subdued, especially this 2 to 4K area. It's more controlled, so even though you have this peak here at 5, it's not really noticeable. However, I used the 07 tip, which is a tip that I just like a lot more. And if I just align the two of them so you can see what I'm saying, the TTROMSO with the 07 tip just becomes slightly more pleasurable to listen to. First of all, you get a lot more detail in this area here. The fact that you got that peak there again, I reaffirm, because you got so much bass energy, it helps control it, and then it actually gains in terms of its 3D-ness. Okay, this extension here kind of is to a certain extent very reminiscent of what you get on the SG01. You see that the SG01's also got that same type of extension past 10K. And it just makes for a very agreeable sound. I mean, I'm just going to put here the CA quickly, the Vegetronic CA, and just align them, just align the two of them. Okay, and you can already see what I'm talking about. The CA has got just a smidge more bass, a little bit more energy there in that 2 point something to 4K area, but this here is enough to just open it up just that little extra little bit to make it edge out the TTROMSO. And again, it's got great 3D-ness and allowing it for great technicalities and everything. These two IEMs, they sound absolutely amazing, to be honest. Very, very nice. And then finally the X1 is the one that has, let's say, the more kind of normal signature kind of, although it's got differences to the more traditional kind of signature that you get. But you can see what I was saying, it's got huge bass. I mean, 80 to 80 to 94, so 14 dBs of gain of bass. But then the mids and the highs are done very, very nicely, very, very relaxed, very smooth. This amount of bass doesn't help with making the mids as open as they should be. I mean, let's face it, all of these IEMs are colored, some more, some less, and you either accept that coloredness, and you like it you don't. I mean, if I put the TTROMSO back up here, you can see the same situation. But on the TTROMSO, because you got more energy here in this area of 4 to 8K, it just allows for it, and again, past 10K more energy, it just sounds more open, although you still got huge bass like you do on the TTROMSO, on the X1, sorry. Let me just change the color of the X1 to a color which will differentiate itself more. So blue is the TTROMSO, and the red is the blue is the X1, and the red is the TTROMSO. So the X1, a little bit less mid bass, yes, and it's noticeable. It's more sub bass focused, but then the mids are more relaxed, more or smoother, but at the same time darker sounding, especially because this area here of 4.5 to 7, 8K is more subdued, and also there's less extension past 10K. So you notice that it's a darker sounding IEM, but it's not a dark sounding IEM like is, for example, the SEAELF. The SEAELF is the SEAELF is. It is just, I don't know, maybe it's just because of the disparity that you have between this peakiness here and then the way it just goes dark. It just sounds very dark. It sounds way darker than what the X1 sounds. Okay, so that's it, guys. I'll just show you each one of the diagrams again, just individually. So the first one is the SG03s. Okay, the biggest problem is just this area here that needed to be addressed in a different manner. Okay, the Hakugai, the CLF, again, it's got good bass, but then this peakiness here above the 10 dBs, and then this such abrupt drop off just makes for a very, very dark sounding IEM. Honestly, very dark sounding IEM. But again, a great pity, because the tuning, the driver, sorry, does have potential. It's just a tuning that was done not in the best of manners. Then the Tipsy TT ROMs, very nice. Honestly, the graph really doesn't do justice to how good it sounds. It sounds really, really good. It's got a very, very agreeable old school kind of vibe. Yes, there is some bleeding to the mids, and yes, there isn't the most. It doesn't let all the best vocals come out, and yes, fine, there are negative aspects to it, but overall the positive aspects in my opinion outweigh the negatives, and it just makes for a very sweet sounding IEM, which is again very reminiscent of the VE which I just put up. If you like the VE, you will like the TTROMSO. Okay. And then finally the X1, the XSL X1, which has great huge big sub bass, which one of two things here could be done, but then again it would no longer be the X1, which is if you bring this down, it would no longer be as grand as it is. I mean, we're talking about, like I said, 15 dBs of gain there, and we're talking about 80 to 88, so 8 dBs of gain into the mids. So there's a big difference. Okay, as I mentioned in another review, I like the curve to be skewed this way, so more emphasis on the bass and less so on the mids and highs. But it's here, it can be perhaps a little bit too much for some, and might as well come across as a little bit darker. Although I repeat, it's a well executed, darker or warmer sounding. I think the best or the most correct way to actually say this is that the X1 is a warmer sounding IEM, while the Hakugei is a darker sounding IEM. Definitely. This here doesn't really show how dark it becomes, because this is like, it's like a 4.5. It just shuts down. That's it. Anyway, guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions you guys might have, please feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer as always. All right, you take care now. Bye bye.